My name is Barbara Tooker, and I'm the Executive Director of the National Parenting Institute. We're headquartered in Temecula, California.
All right. Tell me about your personal experiences with military dependent students.
My personal experience is with friends and neighbors because Temecula borders Camp Pendleton. So Temecula is an area where there are a lot of military, active military, and a lot of retired military. In fact, within the Inland Empire, the statistics say there are about 57,000 families within that area that are already retired and choosing to still live there. So there's a heavy military presence in our area.
Yeah, I mean, you got
right.
A huge base there, too.
That's right. So we hear lots of stories, lots of wonderful celebrations of life in the military. There's a lot of support in our community through our churches and our service organizations for our military families. So those are the kinds of things that happen on a personal level. On a professional level, my experience through the National Parenting Institute is developing curriculum that can also be used with military families to talk about parenting issues, which is a very difficult kind of a topic, especially with deployment and multiple deployments. So it's been very interesting in terms of the military teaching me a lot about them and what military families have to go through in life.
I mean, and the fact that there's someone out there kind of, because it doesn't all just come to you, you know? And so
That's right.
It's good that there's something out there that's helping the parents with how to handle it.
I think that there are always opportunities for parenting courses on the bases. The bases have been very good about supporting families. The issue becomes one of perception on the part of the members of the military about whether or not they're going to get a self-help class could impact their career. And many times they would rather go off base than on base. And that's why I'm so grateful for this project. This project marries the best of both worlds. It marries the social services side of the house with the education side of the house. And people are much more tolerant in terms of self-help if it comes from an educational point of view. So with the expansion of this program, I think we're going to see entire new worlds of opportunities open up for families to receive the help that they deserve and that we should be giving to them.
How has the organization that you're affiliated with addressed the needs of military dependents?
We have tried to, and I don't know if this is a very good word to choose, but for our purposes, we have tried to place them and what we would call mainstreaming them, which is a special ed term, but we really do mainstream them in our regular parenting classes. Because I think it's good for families in our community to see what the issues are that military families have. And I think it's also good for military families to understand the community and the families that are in the community and to realize that they are there and can be welcomed with open arms when they reach out. So it serves a dual purpose to make sure that we don't just have a class for military families because it creates an abnormal situation for them.
I guess kind of with that, I've been asking this question. What do you think the differences are, if any, between base schools versus public schools or just any school off base?
With a public school, you're getting a lot of non-military. And if you're going to eventually be living in the world that includes military and includes non-military, the public schools can offer that opportunity. So mixing and blending families together, regardless of the occupation involved, I think is a good thing because it stabilizes a community to understand that there are different needs and different populations that need to be served. So I'm a fairly big component of military children going to public schools and having an opportunity to work with children who are not military. And there's another really neat point about this, I think. That is that it gives our non-military children a chance to see what their fellow classmates go through as a military child. And we're not trying to place them in any sort of a victim role, but they do have some issues that are layered on top of other issues that need to be addressed. And I think it begins to create tolerance among the children in school and hence the entire community.
Yeah. What do you consider top priorities when working with military children or their families?
Understanding their continual changes in life and understanding that what today is for today and what tomorrow is for tomorrow, but that it can all work and blend together. And it's sort of like passing the baton from day to day. And we jokingly hear military children saying, "I was a military brat." And we laugh about that. I think there's a defensiveness about the fact that I may not have place in mind in terms of my own safety and security. Where would I actually call home? Because I have moved around. And so I think we have to be very cognizant of the fact that place and space is a constantly moving box for military families, and to begin to provide those kinds of coping skills for the safety and security net they need, no matter which place and space they're in.
And one of the other interviews, we bring up place and kind of a stable living area or something, stable anything, when being, a military child, that the school can be looked at as that constant.
Mm-hmm.
That keep that as the stable. That shouldn't be changing every time they move to, which I feel can be an issue when being a military child.
Yes.
And which schools is how they taught me how to do this. We don't do that here. We're different. So. But yeah. How do you think public education has responded to military dependence?
I have just finished a 17-year tenure as a school board member, and I'm looking at this through the lens of a decision maker. We have forms that we are responsible for filling out with schools about military children in our schools. We have a connection to a base. But over the years, I think it's changed. I think for a while, those were just statistics on a form. The forms needed to be filled out because you might be able to get some federal funds. The families came and went, so it wasn't a very stable kind of an atmosphere. And I don't think that any of us were really trained to think about what it really meant. We didn't really think about this group as more than a group on the paper. I look back on that now and I feel that was unfortunate, because now that I'm not on the board, I can look back and reflect and see where there were places that, had I been more cognizant of that as a decision maker within the district, that I might have been able to affect specific policies that could have helped them more. And now I do whatever I can to make sure that that kind of thing happens. But let me say this, I think too that times have changed. I think too now there's much more respect and gratitude and thankfulness for military families than there has been for a long time. It's just been in the last few years that my brother, who was a decorated Vietnam War veteran, has even talked about the experiences. Because there were protests, they knew it. They were against the soldiers, not against the military. When he came back and flew back into this country, there were protesters who came and threw rocks at them as they got off the planes. That was a general attitude that pervaded for a long time. And so I think that we've finally had an opportunity now to get over the angst of a war that we hated and separate out individual families from a military system. And because of that, I think we've had also the opportunity to get away from that enough that we can look at how it does impact the individual family and the individual child, and then to begin to deal with that, just as we look at how any traumatic situation or experience impacts any other family or any other child. So it's nice because I think they're now more blended in our communities, as they should have been all along, and it's too bad they weren't. We can't go back and undo it, but we can certainly move forward with more welcoming and open arms.
And as clearly with this USC program, it's steps forward.
It is, and I think that as this sort of sprinkles out throughout the rest of the country, this wonderful project that USC has going, and as the interns begin to scatter and sort of pollinate the rest of the population, I think we're going to see absolutely marvelous, wonderful things happening and lots of lights coming on. And that's what it's all about, is the perceptions and the attitudes, and just getting a chance to be around someone who can help us and help these pieces of our society begin the changes in attitudes and solidify communities, because it's the strength of the family that becomes the strength of a community that then impacts the strength of a military. So it all has to flow together, and we can't leave one piece out.
Yeah. So last question, what do you, or what do you hope that the interns and people taking these workshops today will get out of this workshop and this program?
Awareness and motivation to act, because we can sit in class all day long, we can chatter amongst ourselves all day long, but unless we take it back home to our own communities and do something with the information, then we've stymied the whole process. So action is what it's all about, and the commitment to go back and be excited enough to do something about it. And that's certainly where I am with the National Parenting Institute. And in looking at the wonderful materials we've been given today, it just adds another tool in our toolbox to be able to work with and help military families just as much as they're helping us. I really appreciate the opportunity that USC has provided for all of the workshops that they're doing.